Hi, I'm Damien Wills and welcome to the GoFly Fix, and today we have Garry Youngberry, who's the Brisbane Channel 9 weather reporter, as a special guest, and Gary's going to talk about weather charts. Hi Gary.
Well, thanks for having me along. I've been involved with the weather for over 25 years, presenting weather television, online, different media outlets, and it's a great job.
Yeah, great. And how did you get started in weather?
Interest through surfing, snowboarding, just looking at charts basically, looking at those weather charts, trying to get a better understanding of the weather, knowing when there was going to be swell or surf, which is created by wind, and eventually going down to the ski fields where I spent about 7 years doing the snow reports for some of the major resorts.
Okay, great. So for student pilots and current pilots, we do have pretty accurate weather forecast. But from a basic level, they need to understand just how to actually read a basic weather chart. And a lot of pilots coming in, learning to fly, have got no idea what an isobar is, what a low or a high pressure is. So if you don't mind stepping us through a basic weather chart today, that would be fantastic.
Well, the weather map, most people don't understand it. They see it in the news every night on the evening news. They see it online through the different weather outlets, and there are just a few key elements that we can understand a lot better by looking at those maps. First of all, the key thing is, if you are a pilot and you're using these charts, there is a timestamp in one of the corners of those maps. You have to make sure that that timestamp is relevant. If you're flying tomorrow and you're looking at tomorrow's map, well, if you're flying at that time, you need to just check that timestamp. They're allocated, updated every few hours, and at least 7 days ahead, these maps. So you can look if you're flying a few days ahead. But one of the key things on the map is the isobars, or the lines that are drawn on the map. Now, they are referred to as isobars, and they're a measurement of pressure. Now, we can't see wind, so we need to represent wind on the map, and that is via isobars, or the change in pressure. So changes in air pressure creates air in motion, which therefore results in the wind. So on the map, when we look at a map, if the isobars are very close together, that means there is a greater pressure gradient, or simplified, there is a greater change in air pressure or wind speed. So if the isobars are close together, we're going to have stronger winds. If there is a larger gap between those isobars, the pressure is more stable and the winds are light. And you can look at that anywhere on the map or country that you are, or prepared to fly to.
Okay, great. And what about a low pressure and a high pressure system?
Well, we spoke about the isobars and air pressure. So there is two key pressure systems that we have on the map, one of them being a high pressure system, and then also we have a low pressure system. First of all, we'll talk about a high pressure system. Now, if you're looking at a map and there is a nice big high pressure system situated where you are or where you're flying to, that's actually good news, because generally speaking, fine, clear, sunny weather is associated with a high pressure system, and you'll often notice with that high, there'll be a larger gap in those isobars, so that means lighter winds as well. So high pressures are good for flying normally. Low pressure, not so good. Often when we look at a low pressure system, you'll see that the lines are a lot closer together, or the isobars, indicating a very strong pressure change, and that means strong winds are associated. And if the isobars you see are that close together, we often refer to, or the winds are so strong, we get into what's called a cyclone. If wind speed's more than around 110 kilometres per hour, that's when we get into a Category 1 cyclone. It's rated all the way up to a Category 5, but low pressure systems are normally to be avoided. We have, with that change in pressure, you have cloud, showers, thunderstorms, all the nasties are associated with low pressure systems, not so much with high pressure systems.
Okay. So I guess instability would be a good term to use for low pressure?
Low pressure systems, yes. Okay. I mean, you can get that with high pressure systems, but they are a lot more stable. You've got stable air pressure with high pressure systems.
Okay. And we hear a lot about these upper air trough and lower troughs. Talk a bit about that, if you don't mind.
Well, like we have a high and a low, there are probably two key ingredients on the map that are relevant to keep an eye out for. The first one is we see a dotted line on our weather map. That's what we refer to as a trough. So the trough is really an elongated area of low pressure. We spoke about a low pressure system. This is not so much a system, but an elongated area. Easy to refer to it, I often say, as a valley of lower pressure. That draws in the worst of the weather into that valley. It also denotes a change in pressure systems between the two on that exact line. And right on that line, if you look at it closely on the weather map, you will see that's where we get the change in wind. The direction, the change in wind direction. Well, just going back to a little bit about highs and lows. In the southern hemisphere, of course, we are talking about the southern hemisphere. High pressure systems, the winds rotate anti-clockwise around high pressure systems and clockwise around low pressure systems. It is the opposite in the northern hemisphere. So not only when you just look at a weather map can you tell roughly how strong the wind's going to be, but you can also tell the direction of the wind by the rotation around highs and lows.
Sure. And cold fronts and warm fronts. Just talk about the differences and how we can identify those on the map, on the weather chart.
Well, we just made reference to a trough. That's the dotted line.
Sure.
Well, the actual straight line that's drawn on there is a front. Now, there is two types of front. Basically, a frontal system, once again, denotes the wind change, the change between the two air pressure systems. Now, the air pressure system that's following, or the most dominant, is what we name the front. So if it's a big pool of cold air in behind that front, it's called a cold front. Now, to denote that on the map, it has little triangles on that line. So you see these little triangles on a line, sort of like a back of a dinosaur, I suppose, whereas a warm front has semicircles drawn on that. A warm front doesn't probably have as much relevance in Australia as a whole. We don't see a lot of those drawn on the map, but that would mean there would be a warmer parcel of air moving in behind that front. So the line, exactly where it's drawn, and if you follow the isobars around the map in the direction of the pressure system, you'll see that's where the change is, and then the winds would be going in the opposite direction. Of course, when you get two winds converging, that's when we get the unstable air pressure, and that's where we often get, with a cold front, we'll have warm air, cold air in behind it. And when that sort of ramps up, it forces it up quickly, we get convection and thunderstorms and all that instability happening in the atmosphere. So those lines are something we want to stay away from on the weather map in flying terms. Yes. Trough and the frontal system, particularly a cold front, I think would bring a lot more volatile weather than, say, a warm front.
And obviously, it's different times of year that we have certain patterns that are more pronounced than others. So, for instance, winter time in Queensland, we tend to get more highs, more stable conditions, and in summertime, more lows. Now, just a general idea of why that happens.
Well, just the rotation of the Earth with our different seasons. The low pressure systems tend to push a little further north once we get into our colder months and winter months, whereas in summer our high pressure systems sit a little further south, and they squeeze all those nasty lows down further south, and they often affect Victoria still and New South Wales, but here in southeast sunny Queensland, I mean, where else would you want to fly? Conditions are just perfect, all year round really, just about. But often too, when you do look at a weather map, you'll find that weather systems may sit and settle for a couple of weeks at a time. You might not get a change for a couple of weeks, and we might have what we refer to as a belt of high pressure. Instead of just being the big circle, it's a large area of high pressure that sits from one side of the country to the other, and it just squashes all those nasty lows down. And it'll be slow moving. Our pressure systems at the surface move from west to east. Of course, we're not talking about in the upper atmosphere where we can have the jet stream and all those other elements moving in winds in all directions, but generally speaking, our weather patterns move from west to east. So that pattern may stay around for a couple of weeks at a time, which is great if you're booked into flying for a couple of weeks.
Yes. Okay, great. Well, I think you've answered a lot of the main questions that we're after today. What I haven't told you today is that I'm going to be putting you with our field reporter, Stephen, who's also an instructor, and you're about to go for a fly on one of our Sling aircraft. And he's going to be asking you some more personal, non-weather related questions while you're flying.
I'm not frightened, I'm excited actually. That's great. That is great. I'm very excited.
And thanks, Garry. Well, let's go flying.
Oh, you're welcome. Let's do it. There would have been some, the last few weeks would have had some fantastic flying conditions. The air pressure would have been so stable.
Yeah, that's right. So tell me your story about how you got into doing what you're doing.
Well, weather was more of an interest rather than wanting to be a weatherman, I suppose. Being involved in surfing and snowboarding, and I was actually working down at Perisher doing snow reports in front of the camera, and when I saw a weather presenter come down to the snow and actually do the weather live, and And once I got my first taste of live television,
Yeah.
that's what I decided I wanted to do. Just like
Okay.
you decide you want to fly, you know when you know you wanted to do something.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like the adrenaline rush now of flying.
Yes.
It's an adrenaline rush doing live television.
Yeah.
And there's a difference between, you do a lot of hard work shooting documentaries and the time behind the scenes and the hours. When you do a live cross, you get one shot at it, one take.
That's right. So that's a lot of pressure, isn't it?
It is a lot of pressure, and that's where that adrenaline rush comes from. It's once you finish that live cross, you're on a natural high, unless things don't go your way, and then you relive that for a little bit longer.
Yeah. All right, we'll just get some volume going here. All right, science traffic. Sling 7788 has departed the circuit, runway 30, currently 1,500. We'll maintain 1,500, tracking southbound over water towards Warram, Calandra and Bribie traffic.
Helicopter moving to Lima Hotel, Robinson 22, rolling.
That's the best thing about flying in a light aircraft, is being lower and actually taking it all in.
Absolutely.
You don't get that perspective from being, really high in the air.
That's right. I think the other thing that I really love about it is you can just go places with it. So last year I competed in the Outback Air Race.
Did you really?
Yeah. So I actually flew a two-seater aircraft from Brisbane to Broome and back. So raising money.
That's a long way.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, 9,500 kilometres raising money for the Royal Flying Doctors.
That's fantastic.
So,
what a great experience.
Oh, it was an amazing experience, and that gave me enough hours to do my instructor rating at the beginning of the year.
So that was an organised event?
Organised event, yes. So it's been running since the early 90s. And yeah, they do a great job. So this year, I think we raised $500,000.
Did you all, how many aircraft are in the event?
Yeah, there were 37 aircraft and about 90 people. So stopping at various locations all the way across the country. And we have a beautiful country.
Oh, we do. And a big one at that.
It's enormous.
The only way to see it.
Oh, absolutely. So, but I learned to fly to get over my fear of flying.
Really?
Yeah.
That's an incredible story.
So 3 years ago, you know what it's like when you're travelling in the media and film industry. You're always on planes. Goes aircraft over the top of us.
Did you spot that, or did you hear on radio then? Or
I saw him go over.
You saw him.
Yeah.
Right, that was mountain traffic. Kilo Tango Romeo, Cessna 172 is overhead the mountains.
Well, that's the thing. You do have to be so aware.
That's right. Situational awareness is really, really important.
Traffic helicopter Whiskey Tango Tango, Robinson 44.
And it's not just to the left and right, it's also up and
You are in
down.
a 3D box that you're flying in. So yeah, so I reached out to Damien and sort of said, I've got this fear of flying that I want to overcome. And he seemed to have a really good operation, so I came up and I met with him, and yeah, we've been partnering on content and ever since.
Well, I know when my son, who was only not quite 15 at the time, said he wanted to be a pilot, I thought the best thing would be to get him up in the air and do like a recreational flight to see if he likes that.
Yep.
And so I went online to do a bit of study and research to see who I was comfortable with to put my son in the air with. And I mean, to me, GoFly seemed to look the most professional, the most experienced, and I like their fleet of aircraft as well. But seeing my son land back on the tarmac, the canopy open, and seeing the smile on his face, I knew that was it. It was done. The deal was done. And it's still that same smile every time I see him come back in.
And that's the thing, you have good days and you have bad days when you're flying. But you always, when you open that canopy back on the ground, doesn't matter if it was a bad day flying, it was still a good day flying.
Well, for me, having a little bit more of an understanding of the weather, I mean, you can get so much more out of your day. For example, when I book a lesson for Marcus, I have a bit of an idea in his early stage of flying. I didn't book lessons when there was too much wind around. But then, as he's getting more experience, I'm looking for, you know, a little bit more of a test. I'm trying to find Bribey Island.
44, right here?
This is right here, okay.
We're that close to it.
Oh, that was the very tip, the northern tip, okay.
That's correct, yes. And so this is Warham down here, straight out in front of us.
Cessna 172, Kilo Zulu Romeo, taxi.
And Morton Island.
Morton Island's right there. Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just the daylight today is incredible.
Oh, it is, yeah. Okay, Gary, so this is the way the controls work. Okay, so you can see that as we're flying along, I can take my hands off and the aircraft just wants to maintain flying. So we call that positive stability.
Yes.
All right, so, and you'll notice that we'll talk about our primary control surfaces. So first one we'll talk about is our pitch. So if I move the control column rearward, nose pitches up in relation to the horizon.
Is that pulling that back a little bit?
That's correct. Yep. Yes, and then likewise, if I move the control column forward, the nose pitches down in relation to the horizon, and our gap gets bigger.
Thank you, Vulture Traffic, Source 172,
and then
Romeo Quebec, now 2 to the north of the beach.
We'll talk about our ailerons. So clear my left, centre, above, below, right, and behind. If I move the control column to the right, the aircraft rolls to the right.
Traffic, helicopter Lima,
and then back to wings level.
22,
and then if we move the control column to the left, clearing my right, centre, above, below, left, and behind, move the control column to the left, the aircraft will roll to the left as well. Okay, so we have a principle called airmanship, okay, and so we build on our airmanship with the lessons, and your son will be going through that. Like with each lesson, there's something that we add on as we're flying. So for today's flight, it's who is in control of the aircraft. All right, so if I'm in control, or if I want control, I will say I have control. And then if I want you to have control, I'll say you have control, and you would say
I have control.
That's it. You got it. You got it, buddy. Okay, level out there. All right. So left hand on that control stick. You have control.
I have control.
So nice and gentle. And you've got a little bit of lean to the left there. So let's just bring that control column just to the right a little bit. Beautiful. Beautiful. That's it. And so you want about 4 fingers, like on the top, and that'll be flying straight and level. So just nose down just a little bit. You can see that we're just climbing just marginally there.
Just marginally?
Yeah, and you'll find if you just use a few fingers rather than a whole fist.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Makes you hang on a bit lighter.
A little bit lighter, yeah, because it's such a sensitive control, we don't do big control movements.
It is very gentle, isn't it?
It is, yeah, and it's very sensitive, so you don't need a lot of control input to be able to fly the aircraft. Alrighty, I have control.
Traffic swing 8693 is
you can let go and relax.
Thank you kindly. I was so tense.
Calandra traffic.
That was great fun. Thank you kindly.
No worries. Anytime you want to go for a fly. I love taking people up.
2000 tracking to overfly.
And so over here is Roy's Orchard.
Calandra traffic.
And that's our reporting point.
That's our reporting point?
Yeah.
Okay.
So in a second, once we're level with that, I'm actually going to make an inbound radio call. And what are we, 4-4, so it'll be 5-0 when we'll get in. Flash traffic, Sling 7788 is 3 miles to the east of Roy's Orchard, 1,500 inbound, time to field will be 50, Calandra traffic. Be a little bit of sync as we come over these trees here, so you'll see our height will
above 300 north
drop
for the next one.
as the aircraft sinks, and it's just the turbulence. And so we're aiming for those piano keys there, Gary.
Okay.
We start to bring our power off. We'll just hold that.
Perfect helicopter, maybe hold that.
And we're down, buddy.
Wow, that's textbook.
On the centre line.
Oh, perfect. Like landing on a cloud.
So you can see there's a lot to, like, I mean, landing is where you get paid. That's what instructors get paid for, is landings, mate. Like,
I was
teaching
nervous
people.
for you coming in, just getting everything right, the speed, the altitude, but gee, you made that look easy.